he had to do things that non-white, non-men employees were telling him that they needed in representation. But instead of saying, well, no, but okay, all that's great and fine, but we need a compelling story. We need compelling characters. Yeah. We need to put it in a believable world. We need to entertain audiences. People that are writing these things that I just, frankly, I don't think they're talented enough to be writing them, and they have no idea how to entertain audience. They feel like their little small cabal of insular people are being served with this. At the end of the day, it's still a $200 to $300 million massive capital expenditure for a publicly traded company. Renegade Online. Doc Hollywood for $50. Pixar had 18 hit movies under John Lasseter's leadership. After he was forced out, they haven't had any. To speak of, Pete Docter's a good storyteller, but he just doesn't have the leadership skills of Lasseter. I think that's a good point, maybe. I think Pete Docter's capable. I just don't think he's got the same kind of heart and soul that Lasseter did. And for those of you, because I don't think I've played this clip in a while. I don't even know if I still have this. I do still have it backstage. This is John Lasseter. This is what made him so great, and this is what made so many movies at Disney and Pixar what they were.
To make a great film, I believe you have to do three things really well. Tell a compelling story that is unpredictable, keeps the audience on the edge of their seat. You populate that story with really appealing and memorable characters and put that story and those characters in a believable world. Believable for the story you're telling. Not realistic. We're not interested in reproducing reality. It's a believable world. So those three components are kind of the guiding structure of this exhibit.
Yeah. So,
100%.
He didn't talk about the message. He didn't talk about you have to, use a movie to try to teach a lesson or a political social message to kids. And I'm not saying that's what Elio is doing here. That is what Disney has been doing too heavy-handedly in the last several years. And they have forgotten. It's like that's been the only thing that Disney has done is try to go for that. And they have completely forgotten to follow the simple principles that made all of these Lasseter films that he had his hands on in some form or fashion what they were. It felt like they had heart. None of these movies that Disney's making has a lot of heart anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look at this picture here. Part of what he said is it's a world you can engage in that feels it doesn't need to be real, but it's something you can relate to, something you can interact with. And again, you don't get that from this image, and you definitely don't get it from the movie. In terms of, is it woke? It's not woke, but it's definitely got a message that, we're telling kids today about, being heard and being seen. And also, there's a lot of messages that the lot of, like the kid Elio is kind of a dick in the first third, but I think it's unintentional. I don't think, it's one of those things where you create a character, you want him to be lovable, likable, and all that stuff, and then you make him do a dick move, and you don't realize that you just turned your antagonist or your protagonist into an antagonist. It's storytelling in Hollywood across the board, Disney more so, is a lost art. That's the problem we have with every single movie, and why theaters are failing, because no one knows how to tell a good story anymore. Sinners is the exception.
Well, okay, I was going to say, we've had a few out there, and I still haven't had a chance to see it. I figure I'll probably catch it when it comes out on Max. But, to Doc's point here, he says Pete's a good storyteller, but, maybe he just doesn't have the leadership skills of a Lasseter. Do you think Pete Docter is capable, apart from maybe pumping out some halfway decent nostalgia bait, like an Inside Out 2, like maybe a Toy Story 5, God forbid, because Toy Story 4 was not that good. But, can Pete ever get to the point where he can pick this up and run with it, or does he just not have the chops to
okay, so
what do you think the issue is?
Yeah, the issue is we cover this in the D files. Lasseter, when he made a decision, it was the final decision. And whether you agreed with it or not, it was the decision. meaning the problem was that when they fired Lasseter, well, I brought up this and he ignored it, or he's not, I brought up representation and he said, oh, but that doesn't meet the story. I think the problem Pete Docter has is, let's assume he has the creative genius of John Lasseter. What he doesn't have the ability to do is say no. I think you saw some of it with Inside Out 2, where he just put the mandate out and said, if it's even remotely gay, we're taking it out.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, and he got a lot of pushback for that. He got a lot of people saying, there was that TV series where there was I believe it was a trans episode.
Oh, the Little League.
The Little League.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Win or lose or something like that.
Something like that.
It was like, no, we're taking it out. And he got criticized for that.
That was one of the problems. That was the whole point of creating that Reimagine Tomorrow program. Mm-hmm. Because think about this. I think you're completely on the money with this, because they did this to Bob Chapek when he was CEO.
Yeah.
They put him, they put that political social pistol that pressed up against his temple and had him record that I'm sorry video after the whole House Bill 1557 in Florida. We covered that thing for an entire year. But you're right. Lasseter was the king. No king. There were kings at Disney, and it was Lasseter. Okay. But for good, I saw this posted today, and I saved this because I kind of hoped that somebody would bring this point up. And this is it. Boardwalk Times, filmmakers who are developing original feature films at Pixar. And there's Dominique Shi, Turning Red, who just was responsible for the second iteration of Elio, which is coming out this Friday. Right. Kristen Lester, Pearl, I don't know what that is. Afton Corbin, 20-something, and Rosanna Sullivan, Kitbull. I don't know. This is, right, this is part of, because, DEI, everybody thinks when we say DEI, you're just talking about black. It's not. It's anything that's not white and male, Or Alan
straight.
Technically is DEI. Yeah, right? Because he's got the Asian side in him. But this is when these are the women. And I promise you, they probably are all very, very politically single-minded, and it's not conservative. But they're probably your typical, like, really hardcore leftist types. These are the women that are making these original products at Pixar. So, yes, while Pete Docter's name is still at the top of the hill over there, it's like Alan said, and I think he's right. I don't know if Pete Docter really has this is the final word, because one of the things that has been the big complaint, and not just at Disney, but across a multitude of industries that have instituted DEI over the years and all of these diversity kind of protocols and this and that was that, well, if the boss was a white dude, he had to do things that non-white, non-men employees were telling him that they needed in representation. And so you get this kind of stuff, and instead of saying, well, no, but okay, all that's great and fine, but we need a compelling story. We need compelling characters. Yeah. We need to put it in a believable world. We need to entertain audiences. We need to give them something they want to see. And we have people that are writing these things that I don't think they're talented enough to be writing them, and they have no idea how to entertain audiences. Yeah. I think they know how to entertain themselves. They make a movie that they see themselves in or addresses a personal issue or grievance or something with themselves, and it's like they feel like their little small cabal of insular people are being served with this. At the end of the day, it's still a $200 to $300 million massive capital expenditure for a publicly traded company.
Do you remember that story of it was Cars 3 where someone took the script and counted the lines that the male characters had versus the female characters?
I don't know. I don't remember that one.
Oh yeah, it's a very famous video. But yeah, they found out that the male characters, I guess it's like 2/3 more. It was a 2-to-1 ratio of male character lines to female, and I believe Lasseter. I believe they brought Lasseter, so they balanced it. They gave men and women the same thing, which tells you is that their idea of storytelling is equity. Is that
right?
A good story is one where men have as many lines as women do, or that white characters have as many lines as non-white characters, as opposed to a good story is a story that connects with people, touches them in the heart, and you tell it however you need to tell it, whether it's a mostly female cast or mostly male cast. But your point is to the audience and not to what is on the screen or group is behind you. I can guarantee, I would bet money that when Lasseter left, there were people of color who could have taken over the job of a lot of the managers. And I think the problem is that they didn't want to put people who were under the tutelage of Lasseter in. So they got people who were just black and had or diverse and had a big voice who could outscream everybody else. And that's the people they put in charge. And again, it comes back to merit. There were people of color who probably put their time in, put the work in, tried to be as excellent as they possibly could, and they were looked over for the activists.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.